Okay, we are officially at 8:30. Let's grab some seats real quick. And you know that we're in this room here for one more week. I might think maybe sooner, depending on the weather. We could have went back to the other one, but anyway, we pulled it off the way it is. Whoa. A lot of water. Anyway, with that, we are chairperson, world's greatest chairperson. Nick, let's give him a warm welcome.
Good evening. Welcome home. Welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Nick, and I am an alcoholic. And this is a one-hour speaker meeting. It meets every Saturday evening at St. Paul's Lutheran Church, 301 North Main Street, right here in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. Food and fellowship starts at 8 o'clock, followed by our speaker at 8:30. The business meeting for this group meets every Saturday at 7 p.m. to 7:30 right here. Please come early and join us. The purpose of this group is to provide a consistent message of hope and recovery through God, Reliance, and service to others through the practice and teaching of the 12 steps. We record all speakers so that others may benefit from their message of recovery. If you wish not to be recorded, simply ask. And this is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. Is there anybody new or from out of town that will introduce themselves with their first name? Yes, sir.
Well, my name is Raymond. I'm an alcoholic.
Welcome, Raymond. Glad you're here. Yes. Yes, sir.
My name's Sean. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Sean, welcome. Glad you're here. Okay. Yes, sir.
Dustin, I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Dustin, welcome. Glad you're here, sir. Okay. All right, and welcome everybody. We record all speakers. I think we read that already. The Conscious Contact Speaker Group encourages sponsorship with anyone working with working knowledge of the 12 steps and who is willing to sponsor. Please raise your hands. Awesome. Thanks for your service. Are there any announcements for the good of AA? Yes, sir.
Monday night back here at 6 p.m. You've got the ever so happy Kara chairing the meeting for this Monday night at 6 p.m. And I believe we're covering step. Kara.
9.
That's good.
Step 9, and it's
Step Kara. No, actually, it's going to be step 11.
step 9.
Kara's right.
It's going to be a step.
17,
One of the
Karen,
steps.
I'm looking at you on March.
Okay. Here we go.
You're welcome.
Also, there's a service commitment available on either Tuesday or Fridays at a treatment facility in Quakertown. If you're interested in that, it's going to be a big book meeting. If you're interested in the service there, please come see me after the meeting. You can do a weekly chair, bring somebody in, however you want to do it. So we could use some service work there, please. Okay. Our sister group is a big book study meeting that meets every Thursday at 7:30. It's just up the street at the Salem UCC Church, 186 East Court Street, and the coffee is on at 6:15. We have meeting lists and big books on easy terms. Please see me or any home group member after the meeting. If you cannot afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group will give you one at no charge. Anyone willing to make donations for the purchase of big books and CDs to help those who can't afford them can put donations in the jar on the table marked Big Book and CD Donations. All CDs are available free of charge. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown, Pennsylvania. And we also have a YouTube channel for our Monday night, the Stay Alive Literature and Step meeting. If you want information about that, come see us. And our Facebook group. Subscribe and share. You can find our speakers there. Join our Facebook page to keep informed. And share upcoming events and meetings. And now with that, we have our fabulous young Thomas to come up and read the Just for Today Prayer of Recovery. Please give Thomas a warm welcome.
Good evening, everyone, fellow alcoholics and friends. Welcome home. And today, here is the Just for Today Prayer of Recovery. My name's Thomas. I'm an alcoholic. Sorry. Just for today, I will be agreeable. I will look as well as I can, dress becomingly, talk low, act courteously, criticize not one bit, not find fault with anything, and not try to regulate or improve anyone but myself. And with that, we'll have Brian up for the preamble.
All right, Brian.
Thank you, Thomas. Thanks, everybody. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brian, and I am an alcoholic. And this is our AA preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and to help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. With that, I'd like to bring Michelle up here. She's going to read our 12 steps to recovery.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle, and I'm an alcoholic. And these are the 12 steps of recovery. Step 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Step 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. Step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Step 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. And step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Thank you. And here's Nick.
Okay, the seventh tradition states every AA group ought to be self-supporting, declining outside contributions. At this time, we'd like to pass the basket. We have no dues or fees. We do have expenses, and this group provides many services, and your donations cover food, rent, big books, CDs, events, and workshops. Also, we have a Venmo. If you don't have cash, you want to make a donation, come see me after the meeting. Okay, please take a moment to silence your cell phone and try to limit movement during the meeting to avoid distractions. Now, to introduce our speaker, a good friend of the Conscious Contact Speaker Group. Tonight, we have Kyle S. from the Portfishington Group out of Philadelphia.
My name's Kyle Streffler, and I'm an alcoholic. Oh, man, this is going to distract me. The whole... Ron, you got to get some sugar packets. This thing's wobbly. Thank you for giving me the call, asking me to come out here, and giving me the opportunity to give back to Alcoholics Anonymous in any way that I can. I have no idea where this conversation, whatever you want to call it, that I'm going to give tonight is going to go from here. I pray, I know my story, and it comes out however it comes out. But at the end of the day, I hope that anyone here can understand that the only reason that I am alive and breathing and able to do this here tonight is because Alcoholics Anonymous saved my life. The program outlined in the first 164 pages of that book taught me how to live when I didn't know my rear end from a hole in the ground, right? I was in and out of AA for a few years before I finally reached a point I was in and out of AA for a few years before I reached the point where I was willing to do what this program was asking me to do, which is simple when written down and, read, perceived, whatever the word is. Putting it into action was extremely difficult for me. Extremely difficult. Like, to actually be honest. To understand what the word honesty meant. That was a very difficult thing for me to do, right? I have a tendency to tell my friends that I know when things are not going well for me when I find myself incapable of looking in the mirror, right? And that's not something that I see coming when it happens. There's just a day that I wake up, right, and I go to the bathroom, and I go to look in the mirror, and like my reflex is to look away. And I lived without looking in the mirror for a long time because I was absolutely just disgusted with the person that I would see in that reflection, right? A person that just took and took and took from everyone, everywhere, all the time, and never had anything to give at any single point. And then, by the grace of God and nothing else, I ended up in York, Pennsylvania at 25 years old in June of 2015. And that town and its enthusiasm for Alcoholics Anonymous, for the big book, for the first 164 pages, it saved my life. It absolutely, unequivocally saved my life. And I'll get into all the myriad of ways that I tried to stay sober without doing just that, right? I'm not from York, Pennsylvania. I'm not from Doylestown. I am from South Jersey, a town called Washington. And I grew up the youngest of 3 boys, 2 very loving, amazing, awesome parents. And I would hear a lot when I first started coming around to AA when I was, barely 21 years old, that, these people would tell their stories about instances of abuse or harassment. A lot of people had been in and out of treatment centers over a dozen times. People had served time in jail. They were telling all of these things, right? Broken homes, all that kind of stuff that I could not identify with, right? Like, on paper, I am a privileged person to grow up, absolutely cared for, everything that I needed, a lot of what I wanted, 2 parents that when my mom died last year, my parents were still married, and like all this stuff. I compared myself out of these rooms because I was so convinced that alcoholism was a result of what came before I sat down here for the first time. And it took a really long time for me to open my mind to what the book says is my problem. And that's that I am physically allergic to alcohol, right? And I know that has to be the thing because I have sat down with men and sponsored them when everything that never happened to me had happened to them, right? And they had gone to a therapist or to mental health treatment or done all the things and had a concrete understanding of their condition, and that thing didn't bother them anymore. But when they picked up a drink, they couldn't stop themselves from continuing to drink afterwards. Like, we had that in common. That was the thing that binded us. And when I was getting sober this last time, my sponsor, God bless his heart for putting up with me in early sobriety, we're sitting in the backyard of this recovery house and we're reading the doctor's opinion, which if you're new here and you've never read the big book before, that is the first chapter that anybody worth their salt in AA has ever made me read. And I would always skip it because it has the Roman numerals on the pages and not real numbers. So I never read it. And you know what? Like, it was crucial for me to read that chapter. It's, to this day, it is the most crucial thing for me to read because we talk about having this spiritual malady here in Alcoholics Anonymous, being spiritually sick, which is essentially a disconnect from whatever that greater thing is than us that keeps us sober, keeps me sober, right? And I come in here as agnostic as possible, right? And the last thing that I want to talk about is God. And for me, it's absolutely important to hear what a doctor says first. This is what I think is going to solve my problem. Right? There's going to be a medication, have tried that, didn't keep me sober. There's going to be a therapy, tried that, didn't keep me sober. There's going to be, I don't know, like a routine at the gym, a girl, a job, a car, these things that I need to find, and it's going to keep me sober, right? Or at least a doctor will articulate my problem to me in a way that I can understand, and once I have a concrete understanding of it, I'm not going to drink anymore, right? And that just didn't seem to be the case. The doctor, spoiler alert, he's going to tell you that you need God, right? And I just kind of needed that gut punch. at the level of desperation that I was at. When I finally got punched in the gut at that level of desperation in the backyard of a recovery house in York, Pennsylvania in 2015. This is the thing that binds us, right? Is this allergy that we have to alcohol. This is the thing that we all have in common. It's unique to alcoholics. And my sponsor asked me if I'm allergic to anything that I knew of when we're sitting in this backyard. And I said, yeah, actually, I'm allergic to tree nuts. And he's like, okay, what happens when you eat a tree nut? Actually, first he said, what's a tree nut? And I said, an almond is a tree nut. He was just like, all right, what happens when you eat an almond? I said, I break out in hives, my throat closes up, and I can't breathe, and I'll start to kind of just like make a mess out of, every part of my body. And if I don't go to a hospital, right, and get treated by a doctor, I will die. And he's just like, all right, what does the doctor do? And, I said, he gives me an EpiPen and he pumps me full of Benadryl, and I come back to normal about a day later. He's like, all right, how do you not eat almonds? I said, I just don't. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, I don't know. Like, I look at the Entenmann's box, and if it says almonds, I don't buy it. He was just like, so you have like this mental control over whether or not you are going to eat almonds, even though you know that it's going to kill you, right? I was just like, yeah, absolutely, 100%. He's just like, what happens when you drink alcohol? And I said, I get drunk. He was like, be a little bit more specific. And I said, I was like, when I drink alcohol, I end up doing drugs. When I drink alcohol, I end up getting arrested. When I drink alcohol, I end up getting in car accidents. When I drink alcohol, I break my mother's heart. He was just like, you know that, like for a fact. And I said, yes. He said, but regardless of that knowledge, even though you know that tree nuts will kill you and you can just not eat them, you know that alcohol is going to do the exact same thing in a different way, but you keep doing it again and again and again and again. And now you're sitting in this backyard with me in York, Pennsylvania, trying to figure out how God is going to save your life. I was just like, actually, you know what? That's like exactly what my problem is. He was just like, all right, well, this book says that alcohol is cunning, baffling, and powerful. You can outthink the almonds. You're not going to outthink this. And that was a very, very humbling experience. Right? To like come to this understanding of what it means to be powerless over alcohol, right? It's not that I can't drink. It's that I absolutely, definitely, 100% will drink. Guaranteed. The steps outlined in the book provide me a path to navigate that gets me to a point where God removes the desire to do that. I can't get rid of the desire to drink. I damn sure can't get rid of the obsession to drink. It's not going to happen. I am convinced in my twisted alcoholic way that that thing provides me a feeling that I am supposed to feel that makes me who I am, and it doesn't matter what I burn down in an effort to feel it again, right? And I mean, if you're anything like me, you probably got to a point where you were chasing a feeling that was no longer accessible to you. The last year of my drinking was me wishing I felt the way that I felt when I first started drinking. And I just could not get there. I could not get there. And it's just, when you're trying to get there and you can't, and you won't accept the defeat that it's not available to you anymore, the things that I was willing to sacrifice was limitless. Nothing was off the table, right? That's what I suffer from. That's why I'm here. That's why I show up and drive an hour from South Philly on a Saturday night to tell my story. Because I know from experience that when I say yes to Alcoholics Anonymous, whether it's the most convenient thing or the least convenient thing, I am more likely to stay sober. I love my life right now. We're rounding the corner on 10 years. I got sober May 14, 2015, right? And I don't think in the grand scheme of things that, the amount of time you've been sober, it has all that much credence to it. But like, it's kind of wild to think that me, who could not draw a sober breath from age 15 to age 25, is now getting to a point where I'm going to be sober as long as I got loaded for. That's crazy. Like, that is inconceivable to me. And it has nothing to do with me. I listen to people that did what I have been doing for the last 10 years because they were doing it first. And they did it because the guy that taught them was doing it before them, and it all came from a couple of guys in Akron, Ohio in the 1930s that wrote a book with simple instructions that for some reason are really, really hard to put into action. At least for me, right? I am the type of alcoholic that makes the same mistake over and over and over again. Like, I have to beat myself into the ground to finally learn my lesson. I've gotten better at that over the years. God has put me in better and better positions to actually learn from my mistakes and not repeat them most of the time. But I mean, man, like this thing that we do here revitalized me and continues to revitalize me in a way that nothing else in life has ever really been able to provide me. I've been like, so much of what we do here is a community, right? Having each other. In the book, they talk about the survivors of the shipwreck of the Great Liner, right? Except, they part ways from the shipwreck, and that overwhelming joy of having survived tragedy it'll fleet over time. And that doesn't happen here. We come here, and I get to talk to the new guy. Thank you, my friend Sean, for taking the ride with me tonight. We get to walk back through it with them again. Early sobriety. And the freedom that you watch a newcomer access as they continue to do the work continues to fill my spirit. It's really an incredible thing that happens here. And I don't know, man. I love it. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I will say that until I'm blue in the face. This place saved my life. But growing up, should probably get to a little bit of what my life was like. And that's that when I was 15, excuse me, when I was 15 is when didn't take my first drink, when I had my first real drunk, right? I'm like for the most part, normal suburban kid, and I was going to high school with a couple guys. We were playing music, and they were older than me. They were seniors in high school. And I was a sophomore, 15 years old. And it was a random Friday night where we were in my drummer's basement. And he had an older brother that was capable of getting alcohol for us. And I just wanted, I felt cool enough that these seniors wanted me to come play music with them when I was 15 years old. And my drummer's older brother made a deal with us that if we bought him alcohol, he would go get us underage kids alcohol. And he got us a couple 40s Old English, That was my first drunk. And I drank, I want to say about half of that 40. It's, 15 years old, 150 pounds, soaking wet. Didn't take a whole lot of malt liquor to get me having a good time. It did not take much at all. And nothing substantial happened that night, right? I didn't black out. I didn't necessarily make a fool of myself. I didn't puke. None of that crazy stuff happened. I just had a really, really, really good time. I laughed a lot. I felt like I deserved to be there with these guys that were seniors when I was younger. And I couldn't wait to do it again. I felt a part of, all of the really good feelings and emotions were present that night, and that was it. It was a good time. The thing that I remember more, though, because I couldn't tell you any special joke that I told that night or thing that happened, I just remember having fun. What I remember as well now as I did when I was 15 years old was the way I felt when I woke up sober the next morning, right? My whole entire life, up until that point, there was definitely a level of fear and anxiety present. I couldn't recognize it at the time. I didn't realize that there was maybe something wrong with me. I thought I was just like this scared little kid, I woke up this Saturday morning and I was sober, and I became so conscious of it in that moment, the way that I felt, the thing in my throat that I couldn't get rid of, and how what I felt last night was the one time in my entire life that it was ever alleviated, that I felt like my skin fit. And when I woke up sober, I just knew that feeling, whatever alcohol did for me, was something that I needed to get after as much and as often as possible for the rest of my days. You know, like that was the life plan right there. I'm a sophomore in high school and I have these friends that are starting to talk about what colleges they're going to go to, right? And what town they want to live in and this, that, and the other. They're making plans. They foresee a life of responsibility and maturity beyond high school. And all I can think about is how can I not be sober? And you know, I was talking, Sean and I took the ride up here together. We were talking about this, like those moments where I might get you know, in my early 20s, where I might get a phone call or a text message from a friend who is not an alcoholic, right? And I'm like in that early stage of alcoholism where like clearly I have a problem with alcohol, but my friends might not know and I have to like keep up appearances that I'm okay. And they're like, hey, a few of us are gonna go out to this bar on this night, you should come join us. And I'm like, yes, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna come join you. I'm gonna pretend that I am like you. And I'm gonna go there. And you go to a bar on a Thursday night, and there's always like that one thing. Every night, something different is cheap, right? So like, I'm not the guy that goes and like, this is my drink, that's what I'm going to drink. What am I capable of getting the most of? So if we go on Thursday night and Miller High Lifes are $3 a bottle, I'm drinking Miller High Life, right? They have Jack and Coke, and they'll drink 2 of them and nurse the hell out of them, right? And like that's like what normal people do. They're drinking to a point where they can still drive home at night. And if I am like legally allowed to drive home when I leave the bar, I didn't get the job done. I did it. You know, the thing that my sponsor likes to say when it comes to alcoholism, you know, and the allergy and the phenomenon of craving that develops once you take that drink, right? The phenomenon of craving, this mental obsession, this reaction, you know, the manifestation of the allergy of taking the drink. What happens is that I take the first drink and I decide that like this is where I need to get, and then I'll be okay. And I'm drinking, and as I think I'm getting closer, alcoholism keeps raising the bar. And I never actually get there. It doesn't happen. And then the next thing I know, I don't know, I wake up in a cell, I wake up in a detox, or I wake up somewhere that I've never been before. And I wonder how I let this happen again. Going with like the most well-intentioned plans of how I'm going to act like normal people tonight when I go to this bar with my friends that aren't alcoholics, that just want, for some reason, to embrace me and my company. It's crazy. I did not turn into an alcoholic with, you know, with a cheap bottle of vodka under a bridge when I was 15 years old. There's a little bit of a slow progression there. But the thing that happens, and it happens with a lot of younger people that find their way into Alcoholics Anonymous, is that the inability to access alcohol on a regular basis has me go for other things, right? The cousins of alcohol, if you will. And you know, I ended up getting off to a pretty horrendous start at a pretty young age, right? 15, I don't know. Everybody's got their own standard of measurement in Alcoholics Anonymous. Sometimes drinking at 15 is a late bloomer, right? Like I've met people that started drinking when they were 11. For me, I thought 15 was pretty young, especially the path that it led me down at that age, to the point where like I graduate high school by the skin of my teeth, and the next thing that I do, instead of going to college, is I go get a job delivering pizza. Because I'll tell you what, man, when you deliver pizza, you don't kind of really have to answer to anybody. And you are getting paid constantly throughout the night, right? For the most part, every single delivery is another 40 ounce, right? Kind of put it that way. And, you know, here I am, like 18 years old, just delivering pizza and like doing this nightlife thing and not staying sober, right? And just like building my alcoholism, feeding into it, right? And then I wake up and I'm sober and I can't stand the feeling of being sober. And I don't understand any of this while I am in it at all. And eventually it gets to a point where like I start losing these jobs and I go to a couple different pizzerias, or I learn a thing or two about construction and working with my hands, and people will put me on for a day. People are constantly trying to help me out, right? Like I'm just this good kid that means well, and at least this is their perception of me. You know, I know deep down that that's not who I am. Like, I navigated life for the first 25 years. Like, what do I have to gain from this situation? If I show up, what will I get? As if my presence at wherever somebody was asking me to be was so damn important and so valuable, right? People ask me to go places now and do things with them, and like, I try to have like the level of gratitude for that as I would, I don't know, man, somebody holding the door open for me at Wawa, you know? My mother leaving her purse in the living room when she goes to the bathroom. The level of gratitude I have to be in that moment and know that there's not a single part of me that would get up and see what's inside of it, right? Like, I try to have that gratitude as much as I can everywhere I go in life, no matter who I encounter or what I am doing. And I am not perfect at that, right? I still get resentful. I still act selfishly. I still lie sometimes. Like, these things happen. I am not a saint. But, like, I have been taught what the bar is and how to try and live up to it and what actions to take to try and get there. So the things that I, did through my drinking career kind of led me on, like, the fast track carpool lane to Alcoholics Anonymous and the treatment center kind of in and out vibe. The thing I always like to talk about is my first real consequence as a result of my drinking, and it's when I was 21 years old, and I was playing in just like this kind of, I don't know, I was playing in a band with some guys that, for the most part, like to drink the way that I do. They had a little bit more self-control than me, but I don't know, things were starting to kind of go on the downslope, and at this point, I don't remember why I didn't have a car at the time, but I did not have a car at the time. I don't know if it was like getting fixed or needed to get fixed, or if I just didn't have one, but I didn't have one, right? And all of these bandmates that I was playing music with, they wanted to get together and jam one night, and we had a pretty cool situation for a bunch of guys that were 21, 22 years old to go play music at all hours of the night. We kind of just rented this little storage locker in the middle of nowhere, and it gave us the opportunity to just like kind of do what we did, because we were all either delivering pizza, serving food, bar backs, all that kind of stuff. Like, that's what we were doing. And we would get done our jobs and we would go play music until 3 o'clock in the morning. It was perfect for who we were and the life that we were living. And for whatever reason on this night, I didn't have a way to get there, and my bandmates didn't have a way to pick me up. So I go to my brother, my older brother. I'm the youngest of 3 boys. My older brother, the middle, him and I are still both living with my parents. And he is enrolled full-time at Rowan University, right, trying to get a degree to do something with his life. And he also works a part-time job at a liquor store, right? He's not an alcoholic, but he works a part-time job at a liquor store in Washington, the town that I grew up in. And I go to him one night, and I ask him if I can borrow his car. And with a little bit of hesitation, he said, you know what? He had to like study or write a paper or do something that was obviously going to advance his life in the right direction. And him and my dad were sharing a car at the time. And my dad had work in the morning. And he said, I have to stay in and do this. Yeah, you know what? Dad's home. You can take the car. It was my brother's car. They shared it. He said, just do me a favor. Please do not drink and drive in my car tonight. And I assured him, with as much honesty and sincerity as I could in that moment, yes, thank you so much. This is another phase of my life, too, where I think that music is going to save my life, right? And it didn't, it's not, never has, never will. But it's still something that I love to do and I am passionate about. And I've always been that way. And he says, yes, please don't drink and drive my car. I assure him with, like, literally as much, I was sincere, right? That, like, not that I wouldn't drink and drive, but I knew when he said that I had to take care of myself tonight. So my plan, even though I already am lying to him, and I'm convincing myself that I am not, right? Because I'm not going to come home drunk, right? Like, that's the thing that happens in my mind. Okay, I know what you just said was don't drink and drive. What I hear is don't get drunk. So I'm going to go to the liquor store that you work at, get a 6-pack of PBR Pounders. I'm going to drink 2, maybe 3 of them, and pace myself. And the other 3, I'm going to hand out to my bandmates and actually be like a decent friend for one night. Bring something to the party that's not just for me. I get to band practice, and at some point, right, maybe an hour into being there, I go to grab what I think is going to be my third and final beer, and they're gone. There are no beer cans on the ground next to my drum sets that aren't empty. And that allergy thing, man, that phenomenon of craving, I don't see it at the time. I don't understand what's happening, but something clicks in that moment when I think that I'm about to do the thing that's just like, I'm responsible. This is my last beer. I don't have any beers left. And now I just start, what the intentions were to go there, give some of those to my bandmates, come home not drunk, right? And next thing you know, I'm just taking again. I am taking. And there's probably some part of me that thinks like, you have to give me what you have to give. Even though they're not alcoholic like me and capable of drinking like, I don't know, a gentleman, I guess. But next thing you know, it's the middle of the night and I am inebriated and I got to get this car home because my dad has work in the morning and my brother has to get to class. And I know that it's a bad idea to get behind the wheel of this car and drive home. But for, as much as anybody could have a good idea when they're drunk at 3 a.m., I didn't have one. So the thing that I think to myself is that I had no other choice. I probably could have made a phone call. And told my brother that I screwed up, right? But I didn't, if he answered the phone. But I didn't. That's not what I did. I thought that if I drove home on this chilly night with the window cracked and I just chain smoked Marlboro Reds until I got there, that I'd make it. That was my bright idea. It's my bright idea. And I know I'm not the first alcoholic that had that idea. Chain smoking cigarettes is going to sober me up. No, it makes you puke. That's what it does. But I did it, man. And I didn't puke, but in the town of Washington, where I am from, the next town over is Pittman, New Jersey. And you have to go through, coming from this place, I had to go through Pittman to get to the house that I grew up in. And it's a road called Chapel Heights Road. If anybody's familiar with South Jersey at all, it's where Duffield's Farmers Market is. And that's the only thing on that road. You know what I'm talking about. There's like 4 houses, a bunch of trees, it's 50 miles an hour, and there's a farmer's market at one point for like an acre of land. And the last thing I remember is turning on that road. When I came to, at the end of that road, right, at the end of Chapel Heights Road, there's a stop sign. And if you go right, you go away from the house that I grew up in. And if you go left, you go towards my parents' house. I'm like a 1/10 of a mile from home at this point. And I hear so often that this is how it happens to people, that they get this close. And, that stop sign, I didn't go left, I didn't go right. I don't know what happened. Fell out, nodded out, whatever, fell asleep. I don't know. I was unconscious, right? And I go through the stop sign, and I go through this fence and the shed, and I completely debilitate this family's beautiful, I don't know, $500,000 home, backyard, the whole thing, man. Like, when I come to, I'm sitting in the passenger seat, don't know how I got there. The entire car is kind of like caved in, glass everywhere. I had really long, greasy emo hair at the time, and I was washing glass out of my hair for at least 3 days after this. When I come to, man, I'm just like, I'm in that situation, right? And I can hear the mother of the family that lives there in the backyard screaming and crying. I think she had a baby in her hands. Like, I just heard a lot of screaming and crying, right? And I didn't really know where I was. I could see the lights, the blue and red lights behind me, the whole thing, man. And I managed to get out of that car. There's always so many things that come to my mind when I tell this story. I still hear that sound in my head that the mother was making, right? 4 o'clock in the morning. Imagine getting woken up at 4 o'clock in the morning to somebody just like demolishing your backyard. Like what that must feel like, For my father to get a phone call from the police at 4, 5, 6 in the morning, like, is my son dead? He and my brother now both don't have a vehicle to get to school, to get to work, to provide for the family that I'm not contributing anything to, The level of selfishness that I am capable of is, I don't know, it's unimaginable sometimes, to me at least. And, they barely even try to give me the field sobriety test. And like a good alcoholic, I had some things in the car that were going to keep me on paper for at least 12 months. And my dad comes and picks me up from the police station, and I go home, and they're just like, they want to have a talk about me, what I'm doing with my life, why that stuff was in the car, yada, yada, yada. And I refuse to acknowledge that anything's wrong, like that I might have a problem, that I need to stop drinking, any of that stuff, right? The crazy thing is that I walked away from that accident without a scratch on me. This is a 50-mile-an-hour road that I do not remember being on, right? And I could have hit a tree, I could have hit another parked car. I could have hit anything that wasn't going anywhere. But I ran into a vinyl fence and an old wooden shed, things that are going to, for lack of a better term, break my fall, right? And slow the car down as opposed to stopping it. And maybe that's why I survived. Maybe I want to rationalize it with science. But how I even got there to begin with, I don't know how to explain. My mother will tell you that God saved my life that night. My mother will tell you that God steered that car. May her memory be a blessing. God steered the car that night and kept you safe. And it's a nice sentiment. And I don't disagree with her. But it's not why I tell the story. Because I don't know. I've met a lot of people in Alcoholics Anonymous that have lost their lives to their alcoholism. And it is my opinion, take that for what it's worth, that when they lost their fight with this thing, they deserve to stay here and be here at that moment more than I did at my moment. And when I got to AA and I was finally willing to open myself up to the idea of a higher power and a God that I could understand and pray to and ask for guidance from and build a relationship with and connect with and allow it to feel my spirit so that I could be of service to others, I don't know, man, maybe I'm too hard on myself, but I have a feeling that a God that I'm willing to believe in would have saved their lives too, right? Sometimes I don't know the explanation for things. The reason I tell that story is not because I think that God saved my life that night and that I am special, right? The reason I tell that story is because on paper, I should have died. And I walked away from it without a scratch on me and was incapable of seeing the damage that I was doing my family, how selfish that I really am, and that I had no desire to get better whatsoever. I was 21 years old. This is the first consequence as a result of my drinking. I have not made my way to Camden, New Jersey yet. I'm literally just getting started. So there's no fear of death or consequence or any kind of thing that you're going to put in my path that's going to get me to wise up and scare me sober. It's not what happens. That's not the way that I am wired. I will drink again. The thing that puts me in a position to be willing to do this work, it happens in here. And I do not know how to cultivate it for somebody that doesn't have it yet. And to be honest, if I could, I would not. I would not deprive anybody of their pain. I would never do it. Because everything that I put myself through and the pain that I caused to others, it's what allowed me to become willing to do the work, to actually learn about what honesty is, to actually learn about what it means to be open-minded, because I thought I knew everything. I really did, and I didn't think that you could tell me anything, because I had just crashed my brother's car and blew up my whole family, and I didn't think that I had a problem. So the idea that I was open-minded, at least I thought when I got here, was the furthest thing from the truth. I thought that I was God. And my sponsor told me that if our starting point is that you know that you are not God, then we can start moving forward. And that's where I started from, man. It wasn't too long after that going to see my probation officer again and again and not being able to pee in the cup, that I eventually got the option A, option B, rehab, jail. And I'm soft, so I go to rehab. And, dude, first rehab was cool, man. It was really cool. I was still, that was the good old days when I had private insurance, right? The shower water's hot, I got my own bed, the food's edible, all that stuff. My own bedroom. I never shared a bed with anybody in rehab. My own bedroom. Clarify that for the record here, all right? Yeah, dude, it was all really cool, and that stuff's nice. It's nice to go to a rehab that has like a masseuse come in once a week or whatever. That's all well and dandy. The thing that I remember about that rehab is that they had Alcoholics Anonymous come in every single night, 7 o'clock, and it would usually be a couple of people that had been through the 12 steps, and they had a relationship with God. And they would give out their phone numbers and meeting lists for all over South Jersey and the whole nine, man. They did what AA does. And they would tell their stories, and I would identify with the way they drink and the way they felt when they were sober. Right? Those two things, how they drank and the way they felt when they were sober. I listened to that, and I said, these people actually are just like me, right? Because I show up here thinking that I'm unique. I show up here thinking that if you felt the way that I felt, you drink the way that I drink too. Right? That stupid thing that you hear at every single AA meeting. And then, you show up to a rehab full of 100 alcoholics, and all of a sudden you realize that you're not special. You're just you're a very special kind of broken is what you are. And that's what I found out I was. And I don't know, man. I definitely had some sort of spiritual experience while I was in there. Some people had challenged me to try some things that, a little bit of willingness and open-mindedness kind of like conjured their way into me while I was in there. And I tried some things, I had some experiences. And then it was when I got out, dude, just like, it was like I was fresh out of the womb. 23 years old, like barely even touched by life. And, like a good little, I'm the youngest man, so like the baby mom comes and picks me up from rehab, and she takes me out to lunch, and then she takes me to Wawa. I was at this rehab. It was nice. It was a very nice place, but they wouldn't, no drugs, so no caffeine. There was no soda. There was no coffee. And first, she takes me out to lunch. We go to Wawa. I get a 24-ounce coffee. I don't put anything in it, no cream, no sugar. I just want 24 ounces of caffeine. And, all that was fun and well and good. And then we get home, and she says, you should go to a meeting tonight. I was just like, what are you talking about? She was like, I don't know, I don't know. I signed that paper in rehab that I probably shouldn't have signed that said that they could tell my mom anything that happened in there. And they were keeping her informed on my progress. And like, I'm sure the therapist said, your son is an alcoholic, get him to a meeting the day that he gets out of here. And my mom did that, right? She picked me up from rehab, and then she took me to my first AA meeting later that night. And there was nothing special about that meeting as far as what the speaker said or who was, whatever. It was a Friday night meeting in Blackwood, New Jersey, right? And I don't know, there was this interesting thing, man, because this guy comes in with his father and son, both sober and Alcoholics Anonymous. And most of the people that were in there, it was older men, right? And this one kid my age comes in there, and he shares about how he had to put his childhood dog down that day with his dad. And father and son, both time sober in Alcoholics Anonymous, after what is not a fun thing to do. I've put a dog down before, and I drank. I did not go to an AA meeting, right? They looked at each other and said, we should go to a meeting and see if we can find somebody to help. To me, that is that's the mark we're shooting for. That's the mark I'm shooting for, is that when life shows up and it's on life's terms, my reaction is to turn my intentions towards who I can be useful towards, right? And I probably have like a 30% success rate at that because I love to sit in my crap, right? There's way too many times that instead of calling my sponsor or going to a meeting or trying to help somebody, I order a pizza from Domino's and I watch The Avengers. Right? And I think it's going to make me feel better. And it doesn't. And I call my sponsor and I tell him the truth. And he's like, will you go to a meeting and help somebody? Right? And like slowly over time, I've gotten better at doing one thing more than the other. But, they showed up and they just like, in a very simple way, told me what Alcoholics Anonymous was about before I could understand it or was even ready to hear it. But I was attracted to that thing that he came there to do. And it's funny because this guy, his name's Chris, he is not in Alcoholics Anonymous any longer. He is alive. He is one of my closest friends, and we talk on a regular basis. But he is not an alcoholic, right? Like, we've had a lot of discussions about that, and it's, you know, some people do show up here having, like, made a lot of really, really bad decisions, and part of it leads to them drinking a lot, you know, but, like, he had a lot of talks with me, with his sponsor at the time, and, like, after separating himself from AA, COVID, all that stuff, he did what the book tells us to do. Go try some controlled drinking. And he tried some controlled drinking, and it turns out he's not an alcoholic, because he tried to take a drink, and he was like, whatever. And now he has a cocktail maybe once a month. So I don't know. I don't do that. I don't do that. I've had, for 4 years, man, I was in and out, right? I would get 3, 6, 9 months, and then I would go and I would try to just drink, and every single time I try to just drink, I end up homeless in Camden. I don't get it. I don't get it. But, like, my history has proven itself to me that I react abnormally to alcohol. That's my experience. And when I come here and I do this thing on a consistent and regular basis, I don't even think about drinking, let alone have an obsession to do it. So he comes into my life, and he was in AA at the time. This is 2012. Like, he shows me what a good member of Alcoholics Anonymous looks like. Not like he told me that that's what he was going to do, but that's the way it ended up going. And I had this awesome example of what a proud member of AA should look like from the day that I walked in the door. To me, that's my first real experience that I knew that God was implementing himself in my life against my discretion. Because I didn't want to be at that rehab. I didn't even want to be at that meeting. My mom made me go. And then this guy walked in, doing AA the way that it was intended to be done. Oh, life showed up, go help somebody. Right? Like, day one. To me, him being there, seeing that, after going against my will, that's God. And now I have had a friend for the last 13 years, unlike any friend that I had before that. He still loves AA. He still talks about how AA changed his life, right? And the way that he navigates life now, he learned a lot from being in this program. And we still get to talk about navigating life that way, right? With reliance upon God instead of upon ourselves. And I just wasn't ready, man. It's that simple. I was not ready. And I go in and out, and I just make every mistake that we tell newcomers they probably shouldn't make, but they're going to make anyway. I made all of them, all right? I made all of them. And eventually, I came to one beautiful spring morning on the corner of 7th and Atlantic Avenue in South Camden. And that thing inside that needed to be there, it was there that day. It was there that day. And I just was more willing to go ask for help than I was to do what I had been doing to get another one. It's that simple. And, I did what I had to do to scrounge up enough change to get on the bus and get back to my parents. I knock on the door. They're very hesitant to let me in, but they say you can come in and you can stay here for however many days it was until you get better to rehab. And I don't know, man. I spent 2 days kind of just like going through it in that bedroom, making phone call after phone call after phone call, right? At this point, every bridge is burnt, right? My mother doesn't have any jewelry left, and she's sleeping with her bedroom door locked, even when I'm not even there anymore, right? I am like out doing the thing. Like, the traumatization I put that woman through is just insane. But here she is, right? The Sunrise House all the way up in whatever, New Jersey. They've got a bed, Mom, and if I can get there by 5, it's mine. And she leaves her job in the middle of the day to come home and drive my ass 3 hours so that I can have one more chance at getting sober. And I'm there for 2 weeks, and my therapist calls me into the office, and she says, your mom's on the phone. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I pick up the phone, and I say, hey, Mom. And the only thing she says to me is, you can't come here. You're not welcome. And she hangs up the phone, right? And I'm telling you right now, it is the most thoughtful, kind, generous, loving, compassionate thing that anyone has ever said or done for me in my entire life. Because I turned to my therapist and I said, what can I do? And she handed me a pamphlet for a recovery house in York, Pennsylvania. And my life changed significantly from that point because I was just like, okay. You know? It wasn't about coming here and saying, okay, I'll do your fourth step and I'll make those amends, or like, yes, I'll sponsor other people. All right, I'll pray to God, even though I don't believe him. It was like, it started there, right? Where I was just like, okay, I will do something so completely foreign and unfamiliar and terrifying because you're telling me that I won't have to come back here and have something like that said to me ever again if I do so. I did it, man. I did it. And I got to York and I spent 2 months acting like a complete knucklehead, right? Showing up to meetings, but just like doing like the silly, childish, bro-y, whatever crap that 25-year-olds in early sobriety do, right? Here, kind of making the same mistakes again with a little bit more of like a threat over my head, because if I'm homeless here, I really have no idea where I am, right? Eventually, after a really, really bad day, where getting loaded was like so close to being the next thing that I was going to do, I showed up at this Saturday night speaker meeting in downtown York called We Are Not Saints. And I walked down and I'm kind of just like the guy again that's just like walking through AA with his head down looking at his shoes. I can't make eye contact with people. I don't know how to shake a hand. I'm doing the fish hand with everybody, and like I go to get a cup of coffee and there's this guy sitting behind the coffee bar that I went to high school with, 3 hours away from our high school. Right? And he's got 3 years sober. Biggest smile on his face, knows everybody in the room. And he's making coffee and he's welcoming people into Alcoholics Anonymous. And he sees me, he's like, dude, what are you doing here? I was like, what are you doing here? He's like, I think we're probably both here for the same reason. You know, but like, it's good to see you, man. How are you? I had no other choice but to ask him to sponsor me. Because like, you know, it's serendipitous, I suppose, in a way. But like, for whatever reason, I saw him. And not that anything that I went through or did or came from was any different or special than anything else, but like I saw this guy that I knew did everything that I did. He drank how I drank and where I drank with the same people that I drank with, and had to be the guy that God, I always tell people, York, Pennsylvania is where they send you when no one else will take you, right? And like he was in that position coming from where I came from. And that just spoke to me in that moment, and all I could do was ask him to take me through the 12 steps. And he did that, man. And we went through all 12 of them, and quickly, right? We were getting together once a week, sometimes doing multiple steps in one sitting, and here I was, you know, 90 days sober without a sponsor, asked him to sponsor me, and then 60 days later, I'm showing up to meetings with my head high, raising my hand, offering myself for sponsorship. Less than 6 months sober, right? And nobody asked me to sponsor them until I was like close to a year. But I showed up and I raised my hand and I introduced myself to new guys, and I got to every meeting early, right? And I was greeting people at home groups that weren't mine. I don't know, man. Eventually, when the willingness is there, this thing will catch you. And I just fell in love with Alcoholics Anonymous in a way I had never been in love with anything else before. And a lot of life has happened since then, right? I've been able to sponsor a lot of people. I've gotten to work all these different kinds of jobs. I spent 2 years in York before I ended up getting an apartment in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which is, I believe, when I first met Ron, or at least we knew people from that area. I spent the majority of my sobriety living in downtown Lancaster, which was really, really cool. It's about 30 minutes east of York, so I still had a lot of the people that I got sober with and the foundational crew that became a part of my life, still is a part of my life. They weren't that far away, but it was just an opportunity to kind of take the next step in life. And I lived there for 5 years, and then the world shut down, right, in 2020. And a lot of things that I thought I was planning for my life to look like, God decided weren't a part of the plan anymore, right? The girl that I thought was going to marry broke up with me. And the guy that I thought I was going to be able to share this apartment with until her and I were in a position to get our own place stopped doing AA and got loaded. Like, all kinds of things kind of started to happen, and little by little, slowly by whatever, I was in this position where I was kind of, you know, doing the work from home thing, because that's like normal now in a post-COVID world. having this conversation with my boss and with my sponsor about what it would look like if I were to go back to Philly, right? And my boss said it's not a problem. If you're in the state of Pennsylvania, it's all the same. So I'm talking to my sponsor about, is this a good idea or not? At this point in my life, my parents, who are retired, had moved down to South Florida because that's what you do in the Northeast. You retire, you move to sunny South Florida, on the Gulf side, right? And, when they did that, I suddenly felt so far away, right? I never felt that far when I was in York or Lancaster. But then my anchor to this place, this area, the Northeast, right, the Philadelphia area, it was gone. And suddenly I just felt like I was on the other side of the country. And, I have a niece and a nephew that are like, they're at that age now where ice skating, t-ball, right, all that stuff is starting to happen. And I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to be around my family. I wanted to see life happen. And I wanted to be near the Philadelphia airport so I could go visit my parents. And after talking my sponsor's ear off to the point where he was just like, I don't know what to tell you. Be willing to make a mistake. He's like, just do it. Ask yourself what your intentions are. Ask God to guide you through this decision, especially if it's the wrong one. And just put one foot in front of the other and take a chance. And I said, okay. That was kind of it. And a week later, I had an apartment in South Philly. And I come back home, man, and this was Halloween of 2022 is when I moved back to South Philly. And it's been awesome, man. About 2-3 months after I moved back, I thought it would be a good idea to go back through the steps because you go to York or Lancaster, if you go to every meeting in town for 2 weeks, you know everybody in Alcoholics Anonymous. Very small areas, very enthusiastic, but it's just a small pocket. You go to an AA meeting in Philly in one neighborhood and then another neighborhood the next night, it's like two completely different towns of fellowships. And it was really hard for me to kind of get in the center of AA, which was so natural for me in those first two towns. So a guy that I knew in the area named Rich Arnold, I gave him a call and I said, hey man, the only thing that ever made me feel like I was in the center of Alcoholics Anonymous was to go through the 12 steps. So do you think you'd take me through them? He said it would be an honor and a privilege. And my life has just been in a lot of really awesome places that I never expected it to be since him and I went through the 12 steps together. Doing a fourth and fifth step, 8 years sober, was arguably one of the most painful things that I've ever done in my life. To look at myself and how I act and how I behave and treat other people sober, thinking that I am, recovered and decent and all these things. Turns out that I am just as capable of being selfish and causing harm in sobriety with time as I am deep in the trenches of alcoholism. Right? It just looks different when I'm sober. And I rationalize it in my head to say that I am, whatever. It was a very eye-opening experience. But it just got me to a point where I was just like, this is home now. I am home again. And I was able to start going to new meetings, right? And walking with my head held high and just introducing myself to people as a newcomer in a new town, even though I wasn't necessarily looking for a solution the way I was when I was brand new. It was a really, really awesome experience. And music has come back into my life as a result of being in Philadelphia and in Alcoholics Anonymous. A guy, if you've been coming to this meeting for a rather long time, you may know a guy named Anthony Legato. Very good friend of mine, and he plays drums in my band now. He's in South Jersey, and I don't know, as fate would have it, we met. And he knew a guy that played guitar, and one thing led to another, and now we're a bunch of dudes in recovery playing hardcore punk music. It doesn't make any sense, but we do it, and we have so much fun. We have so much fun. And I don't know, man, I love this place. I love the opportunity to be in service to Alcoholics Anonymous. It has given me more than I can ever repay it for, right? Because, me to even draw sober breath is nothing short of an absolute miracle, And it's not because I did anything special. It's because incredibly loving and considerate and generous and kind people were willing to help me when I didn't believe that I deserved anybody's help, no matter how low that person had been, how low I felt at the time. They said, you deserve another opportunity. You wouldn't be here if you didn't, right? So I don't know. Like I said in the beginning, if you didn't hear anything else that I had to say tonight, this program and the steps outlined in the first 164 pages of the book absolutely unequivocally saved my life. And if you identify with anything that I said about how I was when I drank tonight, it'll probably save your life too. Thank you for having me.
Okay, incredible stuff. Again, my name is Brian. I'm an alcoholic. The group would like to thank Kyle for coming out here tonight, delivering an incredible message of hope and recovery here. Just a couple quick announcements. As I always say, we have food and fellowship at this meeting, 8 o'clock every week, so feel free to show up early, join us, enjoy the coffee or refreshments we put out. If you want to help us out with some service after the meeting, putting some chairs away, we'd appreciate that too. It is customary for us to thank our speakers as they do come here on their own time and expense, so we usually do form a line in the front here, and we thank our speakers personally. Thanks everybody for helping out with the meeting tonight, our greeters, our readers, and let's thank our speaker Kyle one more time. If you do care to join us, we have a beautiful way of closing down the meeting. We'll circle up, I guess, if you guys don't mind. I guess we'll circle up. We got a few enough people, I guess. Yeah, why not? We got a few enough people, right? We're bringing the circle back.
Small enough today. There we go. Stretch.
And we'll close down the meeting, as always, with a brief moment of silence for the still sick and suffering alcoholic, followed by our Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Keep coming back, it works if you work it.
Oh, thank you. What's happening? Oh, it's great. Yeah.